Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Chestnut Checkers. I am Keith Riddle, as always, here with my co-host Jordan Tampien, and today our guest is Justin Avey with Avey Construction.
Hello, hello.
Hello, and we're happy to have you. We're going to talk about all sorts of things today, but I imagine we're going to talk a little bit about building apartments, construction,
building, life, fishing. We've already taken that.
Well, yeah, we did that off
deers, right?
Live scope.
I mean, I feel like we have a lot of options.
And it's Friday.
So
And it's
more,
Friday.
More importantly, it's Friday.
And we have, I got to give him, we have Lumberbeard with us today. Another
really
local Spokane brewery, the Hop Choppin'. This is a good one.
Naming, branding's on point. They do a good job.
I like it. Well, the Lumberbeard is right down the street here, right? You know?
Ironically, they started when we did at Brick West. So they were building their facility about the same time we were building ours.
Really?
And then we both did 15 barrel systems. So 2 large systems for it.
That place doesn't look that big.
It's huge. Extends to the back. And then
you're right.
even
It doesn't
really
look
that
that
front
big.
tap room's pretty big. And they started doing
the tap
games there.
room's
We
big.
do a lot of USL. They're USL sponsored.
Oh,
so we do a lot
nice.
of USL events there. And yeah, there's some of the best. It's the thing I love about the brewing industry the most is it's so collaborative.
I
Like, you
feel
would think it'd be super competitive, but for the
That's
most
what I
part,
thought, too.
everybody like collaborates. And I'm like, it's the coolest thing about it is like you bring those together because I think if, like Scotland was saying on the last one, if he gave you the recipe, it's really hard to just go duplicate that recipe.
Yeah.
Even
Sure.
though you have the recipe, it's really hard to duplicate that beer. And so it's like this cool one where they can then go collaborate. And so these guys have been awesome. Uprise and all those ones. So
I think every almost like whether it's brewing or whether it's like coffee or whether it's like baking or even if it's like smoking meats or barbecue, it's the same thing. Someone can write down the exact recipe,
Yeah.
but you just never know. Like someone's Traeger runs a little bit hotter than your Traeger runs, you know.
altitudes,
Right.
locations,
So
It's
there's
like
all this
ribs
like,
or anything else.
yeah.
You ever had someone else's ribs versus mine or anybody else? Start comparing yourself pretty quick.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, and it's cool. And I think we have such a good brew scene here.
I
Brewery scene.
won a rib competition one time.
No, you
That'd be
didn't.
great.
Yeah, out of
No,
northern. Out
you
of
cook?
northern. So okay, so I'm not going to
like
take
there was
full.
this digress.
I'm
It was
not
just
gonna
one
take
time.
full credit here.
We did heat them up.
But they had a barbecue competition out at Northern Quest.
Oh yeah.
Or maybe it was a Spokane tribe. It was a Spokane tribe, and me and my cousin entered it. And do you know Al Bassett?
Ouch. Well, Al knows what he's doing. So
Well, come on, dude. I wasn't. I
were
brought
just
a
there.
ringer with
You
me,
were
dude.
just
I
there.
brought
Just
a
the
ringer with
attendee.
me.
That's way different.
But they did brisket and ribs, and I think
That's
that
a
our
great
brisket
competition.
actually should have been in the running.
yeah.
But ours came off late. Right? So those barbecue competitions is a whole thing. And
it
briskets,
is.
you started at
I
like
get
tough.
so into it.
2 a.m, right? To try to serve it the next
Yeah.
day. But they're, the judges were like, hey, brisket needs to be up at like whatever noon.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm like, dude, we got to get the brisket out. And Al's one of those guys. He's like, I'm not pulling it. It's not ready. And I'm like, well, yeah, but he's like, I will serve it when it is ready to be served. Like a true barbecue connoisseur guy he is. So we didn't place with the brisket, but yeah, we placed first place with our ribs, and I was like, I got a
Nice.
trophy. It's
Every time I learn something new about you,
like
Mr.
a
Riddle.
bucket list thing, you
That's
know
a
what I mean? You
bucket
didn't know I was a
list
barbecue champion.
Now I understand how.
I
So
got
it makes
ruck
a little more sense.
championships, barbecue championships. I just need to win
Fishing
a few fish.
championship,
Yes,
yeah.
It's all the ancillary things that don't mean anything in life. But I have a wall full of trophies at my house.
You just put it on the top of your barbecue now. Just glue it on.
Right next
Oh,
to
We'll
my
open the lid.
Award-winning chef.
award-winning, yes, barbecue
Award-winning
pitmaster.
chef,
I'd like
yep.
to, they'd call me a
Hey,
pitmaster.
That's faster, yeah.
It's next level.
So, anyways, Justin, I always ask, are you Spokane native?
I am actually. Yeah, I was born and
Nice.
raised. I've moved away, came back.
Where'd you go?
Moved really far. I went to Coeur d'Alene.
Okay.
Yeah, so
okay.
just across the border, but
Move states.
technically moved states. But born and raised here for the majority of my life.
Nice.
I think I've always wanted to move away, but I never found the right place, or it was just the next place was always more of a disappointment where I was versus here. So kind of always Spokane growing up native. It's like from a child's perspective, it's not like the most cool hip town back in the day. It's getting a lot better. Now it's more like the place to raise a family, and
Yeah.
at least that's what I thought. I always thought Seattle was cool back in the day. And that's kind of where I decided to stay. But
Yeah, it's funny. The people who move away and come back or don't, it just depends on what your vibe is. Like I've got some cousins that have moved away and have never come back, but they like one of them lives in Europe, another one lives in the Midwest, but they just they got out and they were like, hey man, this Spokane is not for me. And then a lot of people, you go out, like I moved to Phoenix and it was like, I was miserable after like a month. I was
see
like,
that.
dude, this is a racket, right? Like, I'm not built for this. This is
Well,
not.
the biggest thing is like I'm a pretty big outdoors person. You know, I grew
Yeah.
up, you know, talking about the fishing like we were just talking about is like every summer we would have like a fishing trip planned and we would be gone for like 3 weeks. Like I just knew part of my summer included that. And if we weren't doing that, we were fishing here at Priest Lake or here on Roosevelt or wherever. And we were just always doing something outdoorsy. And
The
this
Northwest is
you know,
good for that, though.
Yeah.
Right? Like the
Perfect.
Northwest.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah.
Hunting, fishing, everything.
Well, you got so many opportunities. That was one of the things I think that was a drawback for me about Arizona or Phoenix in general, wasn't that there isn't things to do. I mean, it's nice weather. You can be outside all the time. But there is limited of options of things that you can do, right? Like all the lakes are reservoirs.
Yeah.
All right. So it's like you had these kind of summerish outdoor, but you didn't have like up here, you got snowmobiling, skiing, snowboarding, but you also have the summer, you got fishing, you got mountaineering, whatever you want to do. It's just like there's no better place to play, I think, than the Northwest.
I don't think I could do Arizona in the summer.
Oh, it's terrible. It's a
Oh my
monsoon
gosh.
season, man. It's hot.
Yeah. I remember working there, you know, back in the day, we used to do some like night remodels for, you know, some stuff I used to do back in the previous life or careers, but like the pavement would be 120 degrees and it would still radiate heat all throughout the
even
night.
hotter
Like it was
than
just
that. Yeah.
Yeah, we'd go down, but and always for now I know why because it's probably so cheap. We went down like in August.
Yeah.
And you'd have to go swim at like 7 a.m. till like 10 a.m. because after that the pool heated up so much that
It's a boiling
it was
water.
boiling water, and I'm like, who does
We
this?
used to throw ice bags in the, like I lived in an apartment back then, you know, I was young, 18 or whatever, but we'd go to the store and get ice bags and we'd just throw them in the pool, like the community pool. And, you know, and other people did it too. So
Right.
you'd go down to the little apartment pool and there'd just be like 8 or 10 bags of ice floating around, you know, trying to chill that water. But the asphalt down there would get so hot. Like I worked at I was like kind of like an A to Z rental, but it was for like industrial equipment, like construction equipment. And I was a diesel mechanic, but the hitches would melt through the asphalt if you didn't put them on like a piece of wood and stuff. So we'd offload these trailers in the yard. And it's like if somebody didn't block them up, you'd go out there and they'd see these trailers with equipment on them just straight like melting through the
Just
asphalt.
falling through
you
the
know?
world.
The boss would get all mad, like, who didn't chalk that up? It's like, it wasn't me.
It wasn't me.
But yeah, it was like one of those things. And you couldn't lay down on it. You know, you'd go out there to work on something. They're like, go put the brakes on that trailer. I'd be like, dude, give me some cardboard.
Can we pull straws or?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I was low man on the totem pole for sure. An 18-year-old diesel mechanic. They put me in the worst spots.
Oh yeah.
They were like, clean that like concrete mixer out. I always
Just
had
all the
to-
best jobs got to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't get to do much cool wrenching.
Keith will do this. Don't worry.
They're like, oh, engine overhaul? Like, Scott, you got that. They're like, concrete mixer needs pressure wash, Riddle.
You got this.
You got that. I
You'll
was
learn.
like, damn.
Yeah.
Come on, give me the
Daniel's
cool
son.
stuff.
I know that all too well. I used to be back in one of my first jobs, I used to be a firefighter right out of high school. And it was always like the effing
Like
new
DNR,
guy, right?
like Wildland, or like
No, it was like we're trying to be a career firefighter. You know, that
Okay.
was like the big thing back in the day. You know, if you think back, I graduated in 04, right? So I'm trying to date myself. I'll be 40 this year. But that was like the big thing. It's like safe jobs or go to college. Like that was the two things. And firefighter was one, and it was always something you had to do that was fun, just like that. You know, lay on the pavement and fix this, and polish the truck, and you know, wash the rigs, and it's always pointed at you if you had that green hat on.
So you started out trying to be a fireman. Where'd that?
did.
Yeah, how'd that go?
Not great.
No?
Yeah. You know, my entire my mom's side of the family is all firefighters. You know, one of them used to be chief of Spokane, and I was like, that was like my career path I chose. You know, I was like, this is gonna be a cool thing, and so I decided to join up like District 10, like Airway Heights area, and I ended up being there for about 3 years. And what they don't tell you is like it's not really firefighting; it's like 100% EMS work. And
Oh,
like
for
95.5, right?
For sure.
But in the back of my head, I was like, I'm going to be a firefighter. This is super cool. This is an awesome job. I'm going to go save cats and trees and, you know, all that sort of fun stuff. And it was kind of like the polar shock opposite. And, you know, after budget cuts and all that, you had like 150 people applying to be a career firefighter in Spokane. Like
Yeah.
that was like that new hip job.
I feel like that's one of those careers that changed, right? Like, so the guys in the 70s and the 80s or whatever, and then they had kids, and the kids were like, I'm going to be a fireman like my dad or my uncle. But then somewhere along the line, it turned into like first responder EMS stuff. You know, my brother's still a fireman. He's a captain in the Valley. And it's just one of those things where it's like, oh, those guys want to fire so bad.
Oh,
They
yeah.
want
That's
a
what you
fire.
trade
They're
for,
like,
yeah.
that's what I wanted to be, right? I wanted to pull the hose and put the fire out.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, like you got to go pick this lady up off the ground who fell down and can't get up. And, you're like,
That's 90% of your calls. I mean, we could always count for, some of the Quest Casino or the Falls or stuck in the elevator or,
Yeah.
something remotely fun and stupid. But
There's some parallels to that because it's like we talked to Scotland or whatever. It's like
About
you,
brewing.
you want to brew beer.
Yeah.
And then it's like 90% of your life is like cleaning the tank, right?
Yeah, right. What
You
they
get to
don't tell
brew
you.
beer like 10% of the time. So anyways, you evolved from that, right?
I have.
So the
I have
fireman thing wasn't
changed
for
careers.
you.
I have come up from the miss. I've changed careers a couple times, So I think once that didn't work out for me, I kind of was like, what am I going to do? College wasn't really a great fit for me. I didn't really like school. I kind of just partied a lot and kind of did that whole waste of money, aspect. But then I kind of started really like technology back in the day. So I started looking at like what careers I can kind of have. So I started into Best Buy. Actually, it was a Best Buy career path that I decided to take, and I spent 12 years working for Best Buy.
What were you just doing sales, like floor
Yeah, so I
sales,
started
or-
out selling like your CDs, kind of a deal. That was like my first job, like after high school, kind of a deal, and that kind of evolved to I was really good at working with people and making connections and selling things, and that quickly, fast forwarded into working with project team, which they had this whole entire thing of sending people out to do massive remodels on all their stores and traveling across the country and doing the whole construction side. Now that's just what kicked my mind. I love being able to work with my hands and being able to.
So you would build Best Buys?
Well, we would probably do the remodels. So you'd work with like you wouldn't be an electrician, but you would do all the in-house stuff. So you'd be setting up the entire store, setting up all the models, like pack sales, for example, right? You would come in with all the high-end appliances, set up the displays, set up pretty much the interior sections of all Best Buy. So it was a fun job. We traveled. We went from California here, Arizona. That's kind of where we're working there at nights, and that's where I was like, hey, no, I ain't gonna live there. That's this miserable place to live in the summer. So. I did that for a long time. Then I went in management of Best Buy and started running the stores.
How old were you at this time? This is circa like
So I would
mid-20s?
say from 2009 all the way up to like 2017. So
Okay.
I was probably anywhere from 18 all the way up to almost 31. Yeah, long time.
And what ended that?
Really, it was like I really wasn't happy. I kind of had a self-gratitude of like, we have like a giant P&L. We're responsible for $40 million, like 140 employees and all these teams. And I see, the drastic of October through January holiday prep and just pushing millions of dollars on paper, right? I just didn't see anything tangible besides my employees love me, right? Besides being able to really push numbers for a corporation. And you hit about the downfall of like brick and mortar. It started really happening back in about 2017, 16.
Okay.
And we started going through massive restructures, different CEO changes. And I just noticed that myself, I was just a pawn. No matter how good I was at the business, really did not matter. Right. And I was let go, severanced out multiple times. And, with being some of like the best in the company, having some of the best teams, I just realized that I was nothing to them.
Yeah.
They were just dispendable for the most part. So
Well, you're kind of a cog in the wheel, and I think that's how corporate America or corporations work a lot of times. And it's nothing.
Yeah.
They always say, right? It's nothing personal, right? It's just business.
Just business.
oh yeah, I mean, but it's very disheartening when you put most of your life,
Yeah,
your career,
for sure.
And the way I treat business is no matter if I'm working for someone else or myself, I always treat it as my own. Right? I'm always gonna say, this is my business. I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to run it to the best ability. This is how I'm going to run it, and vice versa. Obviously, you have the action plans come down, and I got to execute. But I think that was kind of like the real pivot point in my life is, hey, we're willing to let you go for nothing because you put 12 years of hard work in, and like essentially you were worthless. So that kind of really hit me home, and I was like, what do I do in my life? It's like, I really like working with my hands. I want to see something tangible. Like I want to be able to, if I make $1,000, what did I build for $1,000, right? So that's kind of what sparked that whole entire journey into like the construction world. And I took a big chance, and I cashed out 401ks on my last severance, and I cashed out everything in my entire life. And I went out and bought an excavator, and I bought trucks and trailers and everything else. I was like, this is the path I'm going to take. And I started going down that road. It's kind of
Did you have any experience with that before?
Absolutely not. Yeah.
So you literally
I have friends that like, you were the craziest person I know. I know you'll make it work because I know your drive, but I had zero.
Yeah.
I've watched people play. I know how much money excavators made. And I was like, hey, I need to go pick a good path. I was like, I know framers, just because we have a lot of family construction and they've always wanted me to enter that realm. I just never have. But ironically, no, I did not have a single bit. I learned in my own backyard. Digging holes. Like, it is the epitome of like Shia LaBeouf digging holes in the backyard kind of a deal. Yeah,
That's funny.
That's
I didn't know that. That's funny.
Yeah. So that was kind of like the chance, and then, forward 5 years from that, it was not a fun 5 years, until you started getting up and running. That first 5 years of being an entrepreneur, it sucks, but
What do you think the hardest part was? Like that first 5 years?
hardest part is like really making connections, and being able to overcome, fortunately my wife was able to work and be able to pay a lot of the bills. She just got promoted and she worked in property management. She was in the end responsible for, I don't know, a lot of apartments, but she was able to provide for the family while I was able to pursue my journey. It's almost like going back to college, essentially. Right. So, and, that was 5 years of just grinding, being able to try and find connections and talking to people. And eventually, I started making friends and really became family. That's kind of where all my subcontractors came from. And that's where most of my life.
So what did you guys specialize in early on?
Really concrete and excavation. Yeah. So any like site work.
Okay.
Is kind of where I started on. We started on Hill. I would take any job back in the day, right? 2017, I was like, yeah, I'll go mow your lawn.
With my excavator.
Yeah, correct. Just go mow it with a blade and shove it to the side. But no, I was really taking anything back in the day. And, I've gone through different partnerships and I've gone through different business models and being able to see what works for me, what doesn't work. And I kind of realized early on that you're only one person and you can only do so much work. So to be able to make more money is like, how does that work? Right. So that's kind of where my mind clicked. It was like, cool. Hey, I got to start subbing out people and start general contracting and doing this whole thing. And that's kind of where that kicked off of, hey, I'm really good at managing people and I'm really good at making connections and point B and staying on schedule. And because that's what most of my career was at Best Buy. So
go a little deeper there, because I think there's some nuance to that, but I think there's also some magic in there about like figuring out what you're good at.
Yeah.
Because I think especially in the entrepreneurial world, so many things become a crime of opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. So you kind of start grabbing at opportunity because it pays well or it looks sexy or it looks fun. Yep. But then I think there's also a point in everybody's career who's kind of made it in business or makes it where you kind of realize like, listen, these are my 2 or 3 lanes that I stick in that I do really well. And then here's all this outside noise that I keep grabbing that I shouldn't be grabbing. Like, what was that like for you? A
lot of it was, I guess, go back to like staying in your lane, right? Like when I first started out, I would grab anything, like I said, came down the pipeline, and doing the best of the ability. Not like a YouTube status, like a DIY homeowner, but it's really when I got good at what I was doing, I stayed with that. So like the excavation and the concrete, I really learned from people in the industry. I was like, hey, do you mind if I help you with your work for free? And being able to volunteer my time and to be able to learn their craft, and I've had partners where they are, masters at their career. And just being able to watch, learn, get yelled at, be whittled. I mean, you name it, but I volunteered that to be able to learn that craft. So not saying I was on art or a master in mind, but it allowed me to jumpstart at least my skills. I think being able to put the time in to be able to, or sacrifice that time is able to help you at least learn in that area.
So what were the areas that you figured out like you thrived in?
Yeah, not hitting lines when you're excavating is a good thing, No. And all jokes aside, but like concrete's an art, right? So I think learning how to finish concrete in 19 different ways or how to set up forms and this, like there's a way that, someone that's been doing it their entire life would do it versus someone that just started. There's the hidden I guess I'd say, the hidden crafts that would be there's people don't show, right? So I think
Well, and I think it's also, that's an industry, I don't like a lot, but it's an industry where the bar to entry is also low.
yeah,
And it's also in some respects not hard, right? Like pouring a concrete pad is not rocket science, right? And anybody who has half a brain can probably just figure it out. But there's a humongous difference between doing it and then doing it in a specific way where that pad lasts 30 years instead of 5 years, or doesn't chip or doesn't flake, or you know. And so I think that's one of those things where excuse me, you start to see anybody who's mastered anything, that's really where I try to key in on, right? Like that's something that's always interested me is like, what is it about this person who does concrete that makes them so much better than everyone else?
Correct.
When it seems like such a simple thing. You're like, you're just mixing some rocks and some water together, and you're
a lot of the times, like from my past experiences with the people I worked with, is they just care. You know, a lot of people just go to work every day and they just finish concrete and or masonry work or any work in general. You know, a lot of the people that spend most of their life in those careers, they love what they're doing. Yeah. You know, at least the master in that career. And from the people that I have met, the people that actually care want to teach you. They want to show you the art because they think it's going to be lost at some point. And a lot of people, they just said, hey, we just have people that work with us. They don't care. They just want to get a paycheck. But from being like a mentor or a teacher, like those people want to show you the right way to do things. Yeah. Right. Well, because they want to preserve that.
Well, it's becoming a lost art. I mean, building used to be super highly technical, super craftsman oriented. Yeah. Now it's almost how
driving every nail.
How systematized can you make it?
Correct.
And how automated can you make it? How simple can you make it? And then, like, I'll walk through the Peyton building all the time, and I'm like, Jesus, look at that brickwork. Yeah. Like the way they chiseled down some of that stone and rock. If you ever just stand downtown sometimes and look at those buildings, the old ones, like, that's a craftsman. That's like a true mason who does that work. And now Larry Stone's building his tower over on the North Bank. And you look at it, it's masonry.
Yeah.
But it's like masonry. It's not like the old school ways where they used to do them. And so I appreciate a craftsman now more and more. I don't like their pricing, but I can appreciate the craft more than I like. If I tried drywalling, and you can watch a YouTube video, and it's like, put the mud on, put the tape on, spread the mud. And you're like, oh shit, a child could do this. And somehow I have too much mud, too little mud. It never is smooth. And so I was like, man, it really is just a repetition. And then kind of caring about the outcome, to your point, like, is super interesting because it's not rocket science. It's not like that person there knows something you don't know. It's just doing it over and over enough to get good at it.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things thinking back about my childhood that rings in my brain so often is like, I just remember this phrase, like my dad would always say, like, whether we screwed up or whatever, he'd say, pay attention, right? Like you would do something or whatever, and he'd be like, you know, you weren't paying attention, or you'd be like, you need to pay more attention to what you're doing. Yeah. And I think there's so much power in that because now, right, like having employees and people that work for you, and it's the same thing. Like sometimes it's like you just want to grab someone and be like, listen, you're not paying attention to what you're doing. Yeah. Like you're doing the thing, but you're literally not paying attention, like to the little teeny nuances of like how much mud is on your blade, like what's the speed that you're going at. It's like, and I think that's the one of the things I've learned is like, and you hit the nail on the head, is like you kind of see people that are great at things, and as a young person, you think, well, why would that person share this knowledge with me? Like they would want to keep it secret, or they would want to like keep it to their own. That's their edge, right? But then when you really learn people that have mastered something at a high level, you'll find that they have this actual really deep desire to share it with the right person who wants to learn it and is willing to pay attention, right? And so I've always, when I meet like old codgers who are super good at whatever, fishing, or it's like, if you show them like, hey, like I see huge value in you, Justin, and I see the way that you work, like, you know, this excavator, can you show me how to do that? They might not initially like, yeah, okay. But it's like, if you show them that you're willing to pay attention, like, why did you do that? Wait, hold on, go back and do that again. Like, show me that. Like, if they see that eagerness or desire in you as a young person to say like, I'm here and I'm paying attention and I want to learn, then they kind of like open up.
I think it's definitely like a pride thing, right? Yeah. You know, taking a lot of pride in their work.
Yeah, it's advice I'd give to anybody. I mean, one of the ones that resonates with me was like when you're like, I just went and did it for free to learn it. Like I developed Parkview Tower for free just so I can learn it. And now from that, I've been able to leverage that into these other opportunities. But too many times I see like nobody wants to do that. Like nobody wants to put in the work. And then it turns into this thing where I think too often now we expect it or feel entitled to just that part of the most knowledge you ever had. Like you could look up how to do anything today, but we still don't do it. And I think too many times we overlook that opportunity of what just asking how you can help somebody would look like. That's who I grab coffee with, is the people who are like, I don't need anything from you. I just want to like learn, and what can I do to help you? Because that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
So super interesting to see that side of it kind of is fallen by the wayside.
Well, that's kind of becomes my advice to anybody in any industry of like, if it's something that you're interested in, that you want to learn more or better at a high level, find someone who's doing it at the level that you want.
Yeah.
Ask them, right? Will you teach me? Will you help me? Will you show me? And then pay attention, and then show interest in appreciation for what they're showing you, you know? And I think too often people are either scared to ask or admit that they don't know, you know? And then a lot of times when they do ask, and I'm sure we've all had this, but like the amount of people that have come to me for real estate or development advice, that like you kind of start down the conversation and I realize like, A, they're not paying attention, or B, they're like, okay, got it. And I'm like, no, you
don't.
You don't. And but it's one of those things. Sometimes we go and we want to get the information super quick and move on. And like, oh, I'm going to go have coffee with Jordan. I'm going to talk to him about this little project I got. He's going to tell me a few things. And it's like, good, got it. Okay, see you later. Thanks. And it's like, oh, good luck with that. Yeah. Like, that's not going to end well, right? And so I think it's just that learning process of now. Anytime I want to know how to do anything, it's like find someone who's the best.
Yeah.
Be humble. You know, put your tail between your legs, go ask them for help, pay attention, show appreciation, and you can you can stack so many bricks that way, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think, learning from those guys has definitely jump-started me. And, I've always had a work drive or work ethic, but the thing is when you make that leap of faith, or when you cash out your entire life and you bet something on it, like there is no failing, right? Yeah. It's like you fail, well, then you're starting from ground zero. You're 18 years old again, essentially, right? And, that's kind of where, like, this will work and it has to work. How can I make it work?
Yeah.
So
how'd you kind of escalate the business from yard work to when we met, you were doing townhomes?
Correct.
And that, like, but what did kind of that maturation of the business look like?
Yeah. So the cool part, like, I will give it a credit where credit's due, is like the corporations did teach me a lot on how to run a business and how to manage people and how to develop teams and work, overall that system process. And so I kind of took that with me being the subcontractor at that point. I developed getting employees underneath me and developing like an excavation concrete crew, and then taking that to where they could do the jobs that I sell, line up, or get in place, to now go getting more jobs and subbing out other contractors. So fast forwarding 5 years, we did, started building homes, and that kind of escalated to like doing the full scope. So we would end up being the first in, to do the groundwork and some of the more expensive trades in there, and being able to develop the land and start that whole process. So we kind of really transitioned from a home builder to now how many homes can we build in a year?
Jordan, you might know the answer to this, but I heard this when I was super young, but it was like, how much of the development profits or how much of the development money is already out of the development by the time like the vertical happens?
Yeah. So most of our projects break down into 10% land cost, 20% soft cost, 70% hard cost. So when you're looking at it, by the time you're excavating typically in our budget is 10 to 15% of our hard cost. But then your permits, those fees, all that stuff. So like on Havana, to tap into the water and sewer was $195,000. The permits themselves were another $100,000. So on a $12 million or $10 million build, we're spending 3 to 5% just with the city. We're spending 9 to 10% with the sales tax. And then typically the other soft costs would be like engineers and all that. So My guess is by the time and when you say out of the ground, you have footings. So before you start framing or when?
Yeah, before the vertical happens. So I would even go back to as far as like the
25%.
land development. You know?
25%
you got
is my
plumbing at
guess.
that point too.
Yeah, my guess is by the time you're doing what we call horizontal construction, which is all the infrastructure work, it's about 25% of the total cost. If you went, a lot of times people sell when they're done with horizontal, but if you did the whole work, it's usually about 25%.
Well,
yeah, and it's just because all your fees are there. So I had a buddy who was building in Vegas when the market turned, and he had these lots that he was selling and called them $100,000. Well, by the time the market turned in 2008, the permits to get water hooked up and sewer hooked up was $27,000. He could sell them for $15,000.
Oh.
Like, it's the side people don't understand is how expensive the regs are and the permitting. And it's just like it's in one ear out the other of like, hey, we want affordable housing. And I said, well, if you got rid of property tax or lowered those and you lowered permit fees, we're there. I mean, and then so in sales tax alone on a 72 unit apartment building, in sales tax, permitting, and fees, we'll pay $1.5 million. If you didn't charge me that, we could lower rent by over $100 per unit.
wow.
It's simple
crazy to think about.
math. It's simple math, and that's why everybody's like, "Well, why is it so expensive?" And I'm like, I work with Justin, who I think gets me one of the best numbers you can get on this thing, and you still to hit those minimums, you figure for every, I think it's pretty close, for every $1 million I spend, I have to charge $100 of rent per unit.
Depending on the size.
Depending on the size of the project,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But it falls in line. So like on a 72 unit, it's probably about 14 million, and our average rents will be somewhere around $1,500.
Yeah.
And then if debt's less, that helps. And there's things. And so I think that nomer of the greedy developer, well, you're talking about the guy who's owned it for 20 years and he built it for $50,000 a door. And now they're worth $250,000. Yeah, maybe that case. But anybody building currently now is pretty thin. And what you're playing is a game that real estate as it historically has done is going to go up over time, especially in our area. Maybe the Midwest and the South, you probably get away with making a margin there. But ours is back to why we love living here. So,
Well, and it's interesting to see these kind of two polar opposite ends of the spectrum fighting each other in the sense of, like, the other thing is we don't set market rents.
Yeah.
So you're designing your build and your project around what you know market rents are, right? So I'm going to build 72 units, and I know that market rents are around $1,500. I can't really adjust that. I can't just build whatever I want and be like, well, they're $2,500 a unit. And it's like, well, then you'll never rent them, right? Yeah. So you have to design around that number, but yet that doesn't seem to dictate the costs on the other end, right? Like, so my framer's not billing me that way. My framer's like, this is how much it costs me to pay my crew, and this is how much lumber is, and this is how much it costs me to frame your thing.
Pretty straightforward.
And you're like, well, yeah, but my market rents are $1,500. They're like, yeah, I don't care. That's not how I build, because that's not how
progress bill.
Yeah, that's not how any contractor or any business builds, right? Like, you go buy a cheeseburger at a restaurant, like they don't charge you what a cheeseburger's worth. They charge you what it costs them to like create the cheeseburger and have their operation and sell it to you. And then they're like,
and have a margin for risk, right? Like
Right.
that's in theory what you're getting paid for as a developer is your margin for risk. And if you hit it right, great. But typically that's why they always say you make your money in the buy. Never believe that. I still don't really believe it, but really the element of that is then you bought the land for the right. Like there's only so many levers you can pull.
Sure.
Rent is $1,500, right? That's your
Right.
market rent. Justin, even at his best number, is still going to build for this. Interest is this. So if I'm borrowing
Taxes
to build,
are this.
so the
right?
only
Tap
other
fees
number
are
you
this.
can play with is land, and that's why land can go from $5,000 a door to $25 a door, and it all just depends on how much demand is there for that unit. And so right now you're seeing it. I think one of the all-time lows of where it can. Well, not all-time because of inflation, but if you inflation adjusted a dollar, all-time lows. And so we're getting pretty bullish on buying land because I know Justin can help me control costs on one end. Rates seem to be a little more known. A little less volatility in them, but I think that's going to be the game going forward. Then you ask somebody, why do you even do it? But it's like, we still need housing. We still need these pieces in the community. And so it's an interesting one where you think there should be all this pent up margin there. But the other hard part is, so you did all that. You guessed everything right? And then you have expenses just like you would a home budget. But do you ever anticipate that all of it goes up 30% the next year, but your income stayed the same?
Right. Your rents don't go up 30%.
Exactly.
Right?
So then add one
margin
more
risk.
fun variable into multifamily. Then I'm like, man, I don't know. You got to figure out. And so then it's just, well, then you got to have less debt, right? You got to lower. One of those costs have to lower. You either got to buy the land less loan, so you have less interest. But but that's where finding a good partner and how you do these is such a critical piece to it. Like it really is a team game. I know they throw my name on them, which I wish they didn't, but it really isn't me. It's an entire team comes together, from the guy that had the land to the builder to our engineers, and everybody's one mission is how do we build them for a little less so that we can make them affordable for people to live in.
Well, and I think affordable housing, this is a random thought I had the other day, but it's also kind of interesting to think about. There's this huge cry for affordable housing, but they also relate it a lot to like new construction.
Correct.
Meaning they're looking for developers to build new construction so it's affordable. But I'm also kind of like, well, maybe that's the problem though. Yes. Like I'm, 46, going on 47 years old. I've been in real estate for 20 years. I've never lived in anything new, ever.
I haven't either.
Like why do people that are looking for affordable housing need a brand new product?
That's a good point.
You wouldn't say like, hey, we need to make affordable cars. And then it's like, yeah, these people on like subsidies need brand new vehicles. I'm like, I don't drive a brand new vehicle. What? Why is new construction the bar to create the affordable housing? I think if you...
It's because you can control it.
Yeah.
It's the same reason. So like on Havana, we just happen to be the one with a big enough budget where they're going to charge us. So we have to put... feels like a mile of sidewalk in and street trees and plantings and all these things, right? It's right. It might be. It's like a half a mile of it. Yeah. And you just look at it and you're like, it's because they're going to, it's the late, I call it the latecomer tax.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm now even further a proponent, not advocate, just stating that it'll be very difficult for my daughter's generation to be wealthy.
Yeah.
Is there are so many deferred bills that are going to hit this next wave, this next generation of people that we're going to catch some of, but the next generation is going to catch all of, from old infrastructure. Like wait till that tax hits.
Yeah.
Wait till, we already have the assessments. We're 25 years past what we need for all of our sewer, water, all the upgrades needed for that thing. So how do you get the money?
Overdue.
How do you get the money? You do what California does, and you tax whoever has assets.
Or permit fees go up. Fees go up.
General facility charges fees go up.
Yep.
And you're like, well, okay, you thought it wasn't affordable when you were giving away that stuff. Wait till you have to charge it to get there. And it's the side of the game that I'm like, and I don't think that's just a Spokane thing. Like I just know Spokane really well, but like I think across the board we have lagging infrastructure that's gonna need improved. Sweet, you can tap into that city line. Well, that city line's 40 years old.
Right.
So it's a brittle cast iron now that we're tapping into. Guess what happens when that breaks? Who are they going to put that bill on?
Well,
it's not the homeowner across the street. It's going to be the developer who can absorb it in a $12 million budget.
And let alone the infrastructure you have to improve as you're doing that project. Yeah.
And that's that kind of like strong towns kind of theory, right? Like have you ever read the book Strong Towns?
I had not.
Great read, by the way.
It's
great
a really good
read.
book.
But basically, what the concept or the theory is basically you have all these cities and municipalities that are eager and vying for new construction and development because that's where they charge all their fees, right? So Jordan comes along and whatever developer comes along and says, hey, I want to do this subdivision. And so they're just like rubbing their hands. They're like, okay, great, dude. He's going to pay tap fees and he's going to build a sidewalk. But what happens when you develop something is that then at the end of the development, when the end product is there, you're essentially turning this product over to the city, right? So I'm going to pave streets. I'm going to build sidewalks. I'm going to put in infrastructure. That's fine for 10 or 15 or 20 years. But you've also now handed the city a 20-year future bill to maintain this stuff, but they don't make money on that.
It's going to fall short.
You have all of this kind of vying for or incentives to build more things and to create more things because that's where they make their money. Right. But they're using those fees and that money that they're making today to go, oh, shoot, that development that was 35 years old, we have to go back and rebuild all these sidewalks. Well, they didn't save the money, right? They didn't there's no coffers left. Yeah. The government's very good at spending the money that they have and spending more money than they have, right? On today's development or today's projects. And it's like, well, yeah, but you're also responsible for all of these past developments and infrastructure that they're...
Yeah, we're battling that right now. We're doing, it's not the most favorite development in the world, but up on 5 Mile.
I was going to say, somebody got more press than I did, which was cool.
Yeah. It was super fun. I had news crews at my house and
you did?
pitchforks.
Avey
Oh,
I don't know
Townhomes
anything about
disrupting
this.
5 Mile.
Oh, really?
yeah. I think
I-
somehow I think the whole last name got into the
Yeah, never name a project after yourself. I'll tell
I
you that
learned
much.
that one. That's a hard way, but
Like, even in practice.
we were slated to do, we're slated to do 24 townhomes up there, and that wasn't the original plan. The original plan was to put, 10 nice custom homes, right? Because that would have been like, it would have fit the area better and all this stuff. But after you pencil it out and you start adding the infrastructure costs, the tap fees, and what the city's going to make you do to even get that in, so we have to go up, and it's on Austin Road, and we have to pay from the previous development literally almost a mile down.
You got
So
to
it's
bring all that sewer, all
almost
that water, all that.
$400,000 that you could not absorb if you're doing single family homes. Like, just not a thing.
Right. Doesn't
So,
work.
to be able to get it to pencil out, and that's what a lot of people understand is like the infrastructure costs and what you have to do to be able to get those developments in is so high that you have to go to a high density or townhomes. Like, we're putting 24 nice townhomes in, but that's kind of like, what my neighbors don't see or what I don't share with them, or, if they write all these
Oh, no,
letters.
but they'll drive on the paved road.
Oh, they'll love that.
They'll love
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
But they'll write the letters not to, or complain about the.
5 Mile is always the toughest one for me because every single thing up there was a new development. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, whoever's complaining is living in a development that was a complaint to the people before them.
10 years before.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's why that one's always an anomaly to me. But yeah, I think that's one of the tough parts I see is like, how do you balance that? Labor's not going down. Robots come in. What does that do? Nothing. I mean, sure, something. It's unless you come up with a creative new way to build and design. But no matter how you do that, the infrastructure is still old. So no matter how cheap you get the cost of that building on there, it's still ignoring the elephant in the room, which is an aging infrastructure system, from a power grid to sewer pipes to water pipes to
Pumps.
all
All
those
5
things.
miles pumped.
Old roads. I mean, all we complain are the potholes and gas prices, but really, there's a bill coming due that it'll be interesting to see who's going to get stuck with it. But property taxes went up 9%. I know exactly who's going to get stuck with it.
Yeah.
Well, now we're talking about a millionaire tax in Washington State.
The income tax.
Yes.
9.9.
9.9. You might. So why didn't they just call it 10%?
It sounds better. It's like selling a car.
9.9.
Double digit.
Yeah.
Here you go, guys.
Yeah. Well, what have you kind of? I like hearing. So I met Justin 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago,
like 3 years ago.
through a mutual friend, Andrew, and kind of got to know his business and what he was doing, and so we've really leaned in these last couple of years and are now building Peyton will be like 300 doors.
Yeah, we got. I think we're slated to do almost 350 doors this year. It's gonna be a good, interesting year.
So that's some huge scale from a dude in his backyard with an excavator.
Dude, right? It's been a whirlwind. It's the good, bads, and I call it the ugly. But we went essentially from a residential builder building townhomes and duplexes and stuff all throughout Spokane to really heading up the multifamily realm. Meeting with Jordan, and we have some other projects. We're also talking about the last name. We're also building the units on top of 5 Mile. We got a 48 unit apartment complex, which is the first on top of 5 Mile. So there's a lot of association, that's, I guess, with my development and that. But we've learned a lot over the last 3.5 years. We've gone through a growth phase, which is crazy. We weren't one of those that essentially, for me, gambling, everything, we weren't a multi-generational company. So I've gone from learning how to run, let's say a $4 or $5 million business a year to a lot, and it's really about the point, I use him as a mentor, as far as growing too fast, too quick, and that's really helped me with the journey. But we're at like 40 something employees now and be able to do a lot of the self-performed GC work. We have one of the biggest excavation crews in the area, so we are able to do a lot of these projects now and create the management behind it. So the cool part is being able to control costs, like you said, and the timing and the scheduling. That's really where a lot of our expertise come in, because that's where I came from. So being able to provide that into the project and control budget, costs, and timing is definitely a huge win.
So you guys went from excavation to full-on building.
Correct.
What was that like?
Really, it wasn't too bad, because being able to line out one job to another is still the same concept. If building a house is really just a sequence of events.
Yeah.
and being able to really get people to do what you want when you want. So if you dumb down the build, even in an apartment complex, be able to procure your entire schedule out, that's the entire build. So in my mind, I have to build it in my head first and then put it on paper. Obviously things have changed now. I don't still build it in my head, but I think once you get all that out in place, it's just getting people in at the right time and following the schedule. I make that sound easy. It is definitely not.
Which scale point do you think was the hardest? Because obviously that's pretty massive growth from excavation to what I know you do now. But like, what do you think is the hardest part? I know we've had conversations about it, but like hardest parts in there as you as the owner trying to figure that piece out.
I think it was like essentially going into those first like multifamily builds, because that's really where you hit the growth period where you need capital, because it takes money to make money. Like that is definitely a big thing. So I've had to leverage my entire life, houses, assets, everything I own to be able to get businesses off the ground, and it's not just leveraging a business to make a management side grow. You're leveraging it to buy excavators and the $600,000 dump truck and everything else. So it's not just going out and getting employees. You're purchasing equipment because you're going to go broke if you rent the equipment. And there's a lot of like little pieces that will make you fail if you do not follow them. So being able to balance, there is no failure, jeopardizing your entire life, getting your subcontractors to grow, which is really you at this point, but you almost have to keep them separate, and still being able to hit the targets. One of the biggest things with being like a self-performed GC is like you have to create that cogwheel of work. You can always have projects to manage, but excavation is only one part of a project, right? So one of my most expensive companies is excavation. So if you look at that, it's only a 3-month time span. So what happens after the 3 months? We're still managing the project, but what happens after that? So that's really where I think was the biggest challenge on getting going. And now that we're past that, but I think being able to overcome that hump and get through, I don't know, that 4 or 5 employee area is really one of the biggest hurdles I've ever been in. And it's
so how do you guys manage the stress of going all in?
That's an ongoing thing. That's what I'm learning actually right now. Like that's my biggest hurdle I'm personally going through is how do I manage stress? Because I take a lot of it all on myself. And just because I have so much pride in my business and because I know what I've just taken me to get there and gone through, and with the mentality of that, I would rather see my business succeed than anything else, like period. Like I don't even pay myself sometimes, it's like I would make sure everything is taken care of first and then I will make sure I'm taken care of second. So it's almost like my baby. If you think about it, I got 3 kids, it's like my 4th. So I think that's one of the big challenges this year I'm really trying to work on is how to manage the stress and being able to, I guess, let go a little bit, right? That's what I have a real hard time with is letting go of some of my business. Being able to let people take over and take over the finances and taking over this and that. It's like I'm kind of letting go of a piece of myself and that I feel unknown. So
yeah, and I think it's helpful identifying the stress. Because there's stress and there's stressors, right? So things that cause the stress. So I had a really interesting one now that these projects are going, which are 2 years in the making. So, but I'd have this crazy effect when I would go up to the lake, up to Priest, and I would take like 4 days off. I always got sick. I was like, this is so weird. Like, why am I getting sick? Well, what I found was like, I just didn't have places where you could let down for a little bit. And as soon as my body let down, like I started getting sick. Well, I had this happen where we finally got these going. Justin and I built a pretty fun partnership around how we're going to even do more of these. But all of a sudden we got these handled and then I got sick like right after it. And it's this funny thing where I think you can let stress come into your life in different ways. And what I found most of my stressors was saying I was going to do something, didn't do it. Owing somebody, the pain of those. But one of the things I was able to solve was paying some of those. And all of a sudden this came back on me. Well, I think what I didn't do often enough was I called it all stress.
Okay.
Right. And I think if you can actually identify literally what the stressor is, you can actually create a path around that. Once I knew that, then I'm like, wait a second. If my stressor is the fact I said I'd pay Justin $100, I haven't got it to him yet. Well, then what I need to do is build a plan around that. And so now I need to communicate to you every day. I need to stay on top of it. I can't ignore it. Like there's different pieces. But if I just went and looked at, like I should be stressed out about the actual projects. Like I'm putting,
Right.
I took out $52 million in loans to get these things going. Like I took on, like that should stress somebody out, but it literally contributed 0 to my stress level. I could take out 400 million. There's 0 stress in that because I know the project. And what I found was when I broke apart all of the factors, there was 2 that caused me stress.
Which
Craziest
were?
thing, which was owing people. So committing things and not delivering on them. And then anything that pierced, I'm going to call it the opposite, pierced my family veil and affected my family.
Yeah.
2 things. That's it. None of the other stuff causes me stress. Like I got a call today that Clean Air is having an issue with my Peyton building. And it was like something like that could upend a project. Instead, it's like, no, let me make a few phone calls. I'm going to chat through this one, get that there. Not once did my heart rate elevate. It's only those 2 pieces. After all of this, I wish I could have done this exercise sooner. But it's like stress. Everybody just says, no, it's just stressful. I'm just busy or it's just this. And it's like, no. What is it? It's payroll. Payroll stresses me out. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Then let's identify
Right.
how do we help mitigate the payroll piece.
Yeah.
And you'll find not everything stresses you out. It's the culmination of these things that are usually led by a couple things. And it was like the biggest aha moment I had. So now I'm communicating those things. Doesn't mean people are happy, but I'm communicating them. And all of a sudden the stress level comes down because I'm like, look, you see I'm doing it. This is what I'm doing. And all of a sudden I was able to mitigate that. So the last like 6 months, I'm like, I don't know if the stress level climbed a ton.
Yeah.
And it was the craziest thing. So I don't know that I handled it correctly, but that was one big aha moment.
That's a good point. Like, I think one of the biggest things is you can stress all about if it's uncontrollable. There's no point in stressing about it, right? Yeah. So that's targeting your stress.
Easy to say, hard to do, though.
Yeah,
it is.
Right,
100%.
There's nothing I can do about it. Don't stress about it. But you're like, but it's
still there,
right?
but stress doesn't do anything for you. Like it's not
I got some gray hairs.
It's not a productive. Oh no, but it's not a productive activity.
That's true.
Right.
Like as an entrepreneur, you're knifing through chaos. That's your really the main goal we do. Knife through chaos to find solutions. But like, there's no point where you being stressed has helped you in any way.
No, and I think that's.
And so your goal is to get rid of it as quickly as possible. Not necessarily like ignore it. That doesn't make sense. But like, how do you identify it? How do you address it? Because you're not making good decisions. And if I look back to 2 years, if I could have had this kind of aha moment before, it's like I would have approached it way different. Instead, I was just quote unquote stressed.
Stressed. I like Blue Stiley, who was on our podcast earlier. Blue, I was talking to Blue one day, and we were talking about sleep and meditation, all these kind of practices that we do to manage stress. And he like just so simply, he's like, well, sleep. He's like, that's an easy one. He's like, those problems are there tomorrow. Yeah. And he's like, I just finally had the realization of like, whether I sleep 6 hours tonight or 8 hours tonight, the problems that I'm worried about that are keeping me up from sleeping are still going to be there at 6 a.m. or 8 a.m. when my alarm goes off or whatever. So, and I was like, oh, that's such a good point. Because I would say for me, I live a pretty stress-free life until about like 6:30, 7 p.m.
So it all piles on. Yep.
And then from
Start
like 7
wandering.
to midnight or 2 in the morning is where you're like just rolling up. But that's also the time of day where you can't do anything about anything.
That's the
You
point.
start calling people at midnight.
Yeah. So it's like, so you can't do anything about it, yet this is when the stress is hitting you. And it all day when I'm dealing with problems, it's like problem solution or problem call or like, okay, the stress is manageable as long as I can do something about it or as long as I can make some movement around it. The stress becomes unmanageable when it's like, okay, so the problem's here.
I don't have a solution.
But I can't do anything about it in this moment, or I don't have a solution. But that's going to be the same when you wake up. And I just remember I was talking to Blue about it. And I was like, oh, it's such a good point. So yeah, like literally, like that's my little mantra in my head now. Like when I'm laying there or it's getting late at night. It's like, hey Keith, it's going to be in there in the morning. Yeah. Like just let it go because from 11 p.m. to 8 a.m. is.
It's easier said than done, like you said. It's definitely it's a personal growth.
And you're stressed because you care. You're stressed. I mean, it's like a good. I'm not saying like it's not. You shouldn't have stress, but like it's stressful because it's hard. It's so hard. Everything like every piece is hard. Like it's funny. I mean, I normally would have gone and celebrated closing doing these loans, and then I'm like, nope, we're back to work already. Yeah, and it's just this different mentality of where you look at it. But I think that's what makes it so hard is where I found was I created more narratives that caused more stress. around all of the pieces. Then I was playing out worst case scenarios. Well, that wasn't helpful. Like I just started going down this alley, and it just was like this rabbit hole of stress bombs that like if this, then this, and this.
Web MD your medical
and that's
condition.
yeah, exactly.
Start what?
Web MD in your medical condition.
Exactly.
Instantly
You're
dying.
like, maybe I have a brain tumor. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So you scale from excavation to construction, and then what are some of the things that you do now, like with your company, to, as you're looking forward, not make the same mistakes you did before?
Yeah, so I think I've always learned early in my career to put the right people in the right place. You know, wage is definitely one of those things that I think once you find that person, they're invaluable, right? So that's really our year in the last 2-3 years is really finding that person that fits or that connection that puts in the right place. You know, if our back end, right? Do we have the right person to be able to run that, or controllables and accounting and payroll? Because I can't do it all, you know. So, you know, looking back, way back when is, you know, my first year of management was like, hey, I'm going to do everything. I'm not going to delay crap. I'm just going to take pride and just do everything. That does not work.
Yeah.
You know, and it's taken me many years to be able to delegate
I would
correctly.
say it does work, but it doesn't work at scale.
Yeah.
Right? Like it
valid.
does work at a small level. And I think that's kind of where a lot of people get themselves in trouble, like myself included, is like you get away with kind of you do X and it produces Y.
Yep.
And then your mind says, well, if I want 5Y, I'll do 5X.
Yeah.
That's where the problem lies, right? Because I can do the books and I can do the billing and I can do if it's just me and 2 guys and I'm running one excavator, right? But I can't do this if I have 40 employees and 16 projects. And I think that's one of the misnomers about scaling is a lot of times we think, hey, if I've had success from A to D doing things a certain way, then I can have success from like D to F doing things the same way.
Yeah.
But the problem is that at some point your ability hits a ceiling and your potential doesn't.
Yeah.
Right?
Like what slips through the cracks. You know, the same process that worked for me when I was building a ton of residential stuff is not the same processes I use today.
And there's
right?
so that makes this constant kind of like reinvention process.
And that's really what it is reinvention.
Right.
But getting those people in the right place to be able to help you go through that is definitely something that I have learned that helped me, you know, succeed. So I think going back to it, like to your point, is you can do it. You know, for the first 3 years, I did do that. You know, I did do that in Best Buy, and I did do that, and I just blunt force results essentially. Yeah. And you're just going to kill yourself. You know, you're working 24/7, Sunday nights, and this and that, providing this, and it is not sustainable. Right. In my current situation, you know, so
yeah, growth and sustainable growth are very different things.
Yeah, right. You might get those results you want, but the effort to be able to get those results is astronomical.
Yeah, and it's hard because you don't know what's coming. Like that, your line crime of opportunity. That's so interesting because that's what it is. Like every time I come to you, I'm like, the hard part is I've done what Justin's doing, and not in construction, but in what we did, where it just was like scale at all costs. I wrote that down. I told people, look, we're going to scale at all costs. We're going to grow at all costs. But then I'm watching, and then it's like, hey, I think I found another cool project. And I'm watching his team kind of navigate the ones we're doing. I'm like, hey, so you ready for another one yet?
Yeah, right.
And he's like, well, I might need to hire 3 people. I'm like, nope, I'll slow down. I'll wait. I'll wait. Here we go. But you start going through and you realize, like, you don't really know till you know.
Yeah.
And your hope is that it's not too late, that you grew enough and you can scale. And I think that one of the hard parts about scale is it's a little out of control. The unknowns you're crafting for that. But I would argue scaling from a townhome to an apartment to a commercial I mean, those are all 3 different verticals.
Yeah.
Construction the same, but vertically different. And so how do you navigate, I think we talked about this a little bit, but like, how do you navigate this, just the unknown of every project you take on? The having not done one, like that's the hardest part, having not done one that big. How do you navigate that, and how do you and your team work with that?
So I think reaching out to peers has definitely helped me a lot, right? And navigating through the unknowns is really, you try to plan for everything that you could possibly can, right? There's always going to be something that pops up, right? So I think it reaches back to that problem solving skill, right? I think every entrepreneur for the most part has that base skill with being able to problem solve. It's probably why me and my wife don't see eye to eye when she has a problem, right? She just wants to vent about the problem, but I want a solution. I want to fix it. I want to fix it now, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's what it really comes down to. Reaching out to, we have a lot of, I call it talented people in our family that have pretty big businesses here in the Northwest with construction. And being able to learn kind of the same way I've talked to Jordan about stuff in the past, like what worked for you, what didn't work for you, don't scale too fast, all these good things or information they're giving me, but being able to take that and times it by 12, going out and talking to my father-in-law or people that have scaled to that scale before, right? And it's definitely a jump, and it's a scary jump. Like I said, fail, you're done. So it's one of those things. You try to take all this information in and you try to take everybody's input, but then you got to tailor it to you, right? Because something that doesn't maybe work for Jordan or work for you may not work for mine and life and crew and everything else. So you got to take all this together and kind of make your own operating model and be able to distribute that through your team, and that it's all based off of experience and where everybody's at and what employees you have. And I think running multiple businesses is, in my mind, has been a huge challenge of mine with, I got to kind of keep them separate. So you take the excavation crew, which is self-sustainable. Like we have the knowledgeable people, we have the right people in the right place. So I don't have to worry about it, but then you take the management side that has its own set of problems and its own challenges and growth periods. And then you combine them all together and you have a whole different ball game, then you're trying to take 3 companies to the same scale. And it provides its own separate challenges from the original, if that hopefully makes sense. But
Well, and I think overworking compensates for inefficiencies and inadequacies. Then the danger with that is that you can tell the story that you can outwork any problem, right?
yeah,
And that's that kind of that thing. Like you got a lawn care company and it's like, well, things get tight. I just double down. I work a little bit more. And it's like, but then that works. It's like doubling down and working a little bit more works. So then you tell yourself the story that like, I can just keep doing that. And then I think anybody who starts to scale something to a big level will come to the realization at some point that like, I can't outwork these problems. Like there is no, like I'm now trying to take 3 companies vertical. I don't have the time. I don't have like, it's impossible. So that then I think goes back to what your aha is like the people is like, if you don't have the right people in the right places, like that's where that danger creeps in. Cause if it does land on your shoulders and your modus operandus is push super hard, continue to keep scaling when things get tough, just double down and work harder. The misnomer is that works to a point.
Yeah.
And then at some point it doesn't work, right? Yep. And Reed Moore, who's one of my business partners, he always says, it works until it doesn't. And it used to always frustrate me because I was like, I hate little cliche sayings like that. Like, I'm like, well, it works till it doesn't. Well, no shit. It works till it doesn't. Like,
Idiot.
Duh.
Well
like,
said.
It works till it doesn't work. Great. But there's so much truth in that I think is just, it's missed by so many people until you actually experience it. Like, and you have that aha of like, oh man, it doesn't work now.
Yeah.
Now what am I going to do when my clutch move was always to go into my bag and grab my 7-iron, and it's like, well, all of a sudden you can't get there with a 7-iron, and you're like, well, shoot, now what do I do? Well, it's like, well, if you're kind of a one-trick pony at that point in time, and your one trick is bear down, work harder, put your nose to the grindstone, and make it through. And it's like, well, that trick only works to a point, and I think that's where people really start to hit ceilings of achievement. It's like if you don't learn people, if you don't learn good hiring, if you don't learn good systems and operation, if you don't learn a lot of the other aspects of business that you probably haven't had to learn or that you haven't sharpened your pencil around because you're like, yeah, I know I should have better systems, but I also know I can just come in on Saturday and fix things that are broken.
Yeah.
Well, that'll work as long as you're always trying to play in the arena you're trying to play in. And I think that's been one of the ahas for me as I've gotten older and grown and scaled is like, you have to continually evolve, not just your business, but yourself, because the problems you face will be the same problems, but the solutions that you try to apply to those problems that worked in the past won't work in the future at scale.
Yeah.
That's well said.
I'd argue that's a buzzsaw I ran into. Like even when I took them on, I'm like, worst case, I'll work a little harder and get this solved. And I hit a point where I'm like, there's just too many. There's too many zeros.
It's not sustainable.
Like you can't just, it's unsustainable. And then you're just trying to outwork it. And that was probably the hardest year of my life was then you're stubborn. So then you think you can outwork it still. And it's not until you get, now I watch when they like.
It's that challenge.
Have you ever watched somebody break a horse?
Yeah.
You know what they do? They just run them in circles or you ride them till they just can't buck anymore. And I was like, that's what it felt like. I pushed so hard, and it was just like this. Somebody just making me run in a circle.
Broke myself.
I'm so tired. Like, then you realize you have to stop for a minute, and you're like,
Then you go to the lake and get sick.
yeah, exactly. And and it's like maybe it was that stop and breathe and make a plan because you're like the version of me that got me here and to here is not going to be the version that gets me to the next level. And most people find it difficult to shed that because that first version was awesome. People liked that first version of me. I was funny. I was happy all the time. I was doing deals. I was crushing it. It was great. But that version of me was never meant to survive to get me to what we're doing now. And I think that shedding of that personality and that whole being of what I was I didn't want to let it go. That probably cost me 12 months. And I was like, no, I've always gotten out of these. And then you're like, well, okay, maybe you did, but how are we going to do it better? And how are you going to get this? And so now I feel so grounded in what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Which I never was before.
Well, and I think that's when you see really seasoned or mature kind of business people say no to good ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
And say no to good projects and say no to things where from the outside looking in, people are like, why on earth, and I had this at a small scale. I had this experience when I had a brokerage and I had a bunch of agents and I was investing and flipping and doing stuff and agents would come into my office and notoriously for years and years and years, I was the guy that's like, if you dropped a deal on my lap that made sense, like we're doing it, period. Right. And it got to this point where like agents would come in and say, hey, I got this deal. Look at this thing. And they're like, it's a sweet deal. I'm like, dude, it's a sweet deal. And they'd be like, you want to do it? I'd be like, no. And they'd be like, what do you mean? No,
not at all.
You just said it's a sweet deal. Like and it's like, yeah, I know, but it's not, I can't do that right now, or it's not for me. And just the look of bewilderment on their face of like, this is a 9 out of 10. What do you mean you're saying no? And it's like, but I've learned from getting my teeth kicked in enough times that like, you can't always say yes to good opportunities.
Correct.
And I think that is the kiss of death to a lot of entrepreneurs because we're so hungry for good deals. Like, good deals are hard to find. Like, good deals are not, they don't just drop in your lap every day. And so when they get dropped in your lap, like, you're like, yeah, dude, I finally found one. Like, this is a sweet deal. Like, I'm going to go. And then you start doing that long enough. And then pretty soon you're like, you start saying yes to good opportunities. And it's not the opportunities themselves that are poor. It's your ability to perform at a massive scale, like, or at a width where you'll screw up that really good deal because of all the other good deals you got going.
Correct.
And now you start to second guess yourself and you start to second guess you. And it's like, well, it wasn't ever the project,
effect.
Right? It was never the project that was the problem. It was my bandwidth that was the problem, right? Or it was my ability to control all the different pieces at the same time that are the project.
Yeah, every yes carries baggage. And you said this in like the first podcast we did. That's what I took away from it. Is like, even if I justify it because I can do it better, faster, stronger now, right? But every time I say yes, there's bandwidth baggage that comes with it. And so that's kind of like in my head when somebody asks me to do something now, I'm just picturing, okay, even if I say yes, it's still, maybe it's 5 hours a week, but still 5 hours a week. Plus, if it doesn't go right, another 5. So then it's like, is that worth giving up potentially 10 hours of my time? Because what I didn't recognize in saying yes to so many things was then I had to say no to some really good things because I had said yes to so many things.
Right. And you don't necessarily do that innately, right? So the saying that I like heard and grabbed onto when I was young was like, every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else.
Yeah.
Right. Which in theory, you're like, what? I don't get it. Like, whatever. But it's true. It's like every time you say yes to something, the next day someone can come with a big deal and it's like, well, yeah, but I just said yes to this deal yesterday.
Cause and effect.
Now I have to say yes to this deal, which might even be a better deal than the one I'm already halfway in on. And I really am just kicking myself for saying yes to this other deal. But I think a young entrepreneurial Keith just kept saying yes. It was like I would say yes to the good deal. Somebody else would bring another deal, and I'd be like, well, I got to say yes because it's a good deal.
But I think that's the beginning of everything, right? Yeah. It's like me when I first started, I'd say yes to everything. Like that was the thing.
And you can get away with it to some extent.
At a small scale.
Right. And then you tell yourself
you can't.
Until you can't.
Until you can't. It works till it doesn't.
It works till it doesn't.
It's funny. That rings more true. Read a wizard.
Well, and so that was the aha, was like the saying made sense to me. I understood it. And it was like every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. The thing that I never did was say the no.
Yeah.
Just learn when to say no when you need.
Oh, and then all of a sudden you start enjoying saying no. Like, because
Get pride.
Yeah.
Smile.
And the funny thing is, I used to think that was a flippant statement, but now it's that my buy box is so small that like there's no negotiation. Like literally I have a checklist, a flow chart checklist. I'll even set it out there of like 7 decisions that have to be all yeses. And if one is like
jump to conclusions,
no,
Matt.
exactly. I'm going to jump to conclusions. And I think that now, so it's not even that I'm just saying no so that I can trigger my brain to say no. It's that like, no, I know that's a good deal to you. And from what you're looking at, that's a great deal. But like for what I'm going after, it's so narrow. It's so narrowly focused that it's a no. And then it makes my day super easy. So that thing that I used to be like, oh man, I should do it. I really like that. I really like Keith. It'd be fun to do this part. And I'm like, but now it's just like, nope, sorry. And it's not even that I'm being offensive. It's just I know now what I want to do. And so the sooner you can get to knowing no, the better.
It's a learn and self-development, you know.
Yeah, it's just you want to minimize the impact of the learning in the sense of like the cost of the learning. There you go. Not the impact, the cost of the learning.
Yeah, I mean,
tuition was a high bill the last 2 years. I want to minimize that going forward. But it's so hard in what we do because, like I was talking to somebody about it. Let's say I lost $5 million, but I'm working on a project now that could be $80 million. And if I told you that I had to lose 5 to learn all the skills needed to build 80, would you do it?
Sure, but when you're losing 5, it don't feel so good.
Don't feel so good. No. And in the middle of losing 5, you're like, I just lost everything. And it's like, and you're sitting in that moment of it, and it was the moment when you stop feeling sorry for yourself and go, like, okay, what did we learn? Yep. Okay, now I can build a lot of things. Like if you called me on a development, we were talking about this, I was like, I'm pretty sure I can save you 20% on some program you didn't even know existed. But it's because of going through that storm. And so now my hope is, we keep building these at scale. The 300, but I'm like, again, if you could snapshot these now and said, hey, okay, Jordan, I got this one for you 10 years ago. You're going to have all of this, but in order to get there, you might die. Like, this is what it could look like. Would you still do it? And I'm like, oh, hell yeah. If you could tell me on the other side, that's what I was going to get. The issue is in the game of life, we don't know the other side. And so you're just asked to run. Blind faith, run and keep going. And I was like, I would read those ones and those little fun meme quotes that always pop up on Facebook for me. It's like, just never give up, never quit, just always keep going. And I'm like, easy for you to say.
The little
you're mean. You ended right after this.
And I think of a lion.
Yeah, and it's funny because if somebody was going through it, I'd tell them the same thing. Just keep going. I'd add a few caveats around some things, but like, just keep going. So it's super interesting, I think, because I think the first year of this podcast was like, how do you work with people? Because I think what you're struggling through is real. And I think a lot of people have to do that struggle alone. Mm-hmm. Like one of the ones we were working on was like, can we put a mastermind together of people who have businesses that are at the next level? There's things you're going to learn as a starting business person that you're just going to have to learn. But the costs are so low that you better to learn it there. But like, can we put together a group of people where you can just talk or have that conversation? Because I think too often it's you staring at a ceiling in the office. Fortunately, we share an office, so then I can come over and be like, all right, snap back, Justin.
Justin, why are you staring? You're staring at the ceiling again. I can see you.
It makes OAC.
But I think collaborating and having more of those opportunities is my hope in the next year we put some of those in place so that people have a venue for that. Because too often it's just celebrating, hey, great, we broke ground. I'm like, no.
Well, and to your point, I wish I would have had that guy going through this, right? Yeah. I didn't. I just had the ceiling per se, right? Yeah. So, I mean, if I would have known what I've known now going through it all again, would I have changed much? Probably not, but it would have been a heck of a lot easier for me to know that the information, it's going to be okay and run through this and take all these advices. So,
like if somebody told you when you bought your first excavator and cashed out your 401k that you'd be building 400 units in a year.
Not even.
Would you have done it? Hell yeah, I would have done that.
Yeah.
But it's also the fun in life if you knew that was the outcome.
Yeah, it's a funny story. You know, it's one of those that's real and true and all that sort of fun stuff. But to get where I am today, you know, you still had to go through that, you know. And I'm sure there's a version of that in every entrepreneur that has to go through something like that. You know, to your point is, hey, maybe we all get together and create that story or create that mentor help for people to go through that. So,
yeah.
Well,
I
I feel like we could do this all day.
I know.
Solving the world's problems just one podcast at a time over here.
Each time.
Well, Justin, thank you so much for your time, man.
I appreciate
it,
you guys.
dude.
100%.
Best of luck, and I look forward to what you guys are doing because it's super cool stuff. And we'll have a podcast number 2 where we talk about all the successes and how there was no problems involved.
Hopefully 12 and 14
whatsoever.
months from now.
Yeah.
12 to 14 months from now.
No more than 14 months from now is what we
correct.
said.
Yeah.
Liquidated damages are real.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Justin.
Appreciate you guys.
All right, you guys. Thanks for listening to today's episode. While you're out there, would you please do us a favor and give us a like, subscribe, or a follow, whether you listen on Spotify, iTunes, or YouTube. We'd really appreciate it. Also, if you don't mind while you're there, give us a 5-star review. Maybe write a review. If you have a favorite episode, feel free to give it a like. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate it.